Hello, Education 200. How's it going? It's Dr. Allen. I'm actually in my office this morning. Sorry, it's a little bit of disarray. Um, Getting a new desk and stuff, so I'm moving some stuff around. I hope all is going well. Going into week 3. A few things before I get going. One, I didn't put this on last week's because I wasn't done viewing them all, but the intro videos from the first week were fantastic. That was just so everyone can kind of get used to using Flipgrid and be familiar with yourselves, and in case you want to respond or talk to anyone in the class. Some of you, I think there was 2 or 3 people who did not post an intro video. Please do that. And a few people have come in, I know, during the first week of ad drop. If you haven't done that, or if you haven't gotten the Flipgrid login, please contact me and post a video. I think I got everyone, but just in case, make sure you get something up there so we know what everyone looks like and such, since we're an asynchronous course. This week, we're going to talk a little bit about democratic classrooms and some of the requirements that are due. But before I jump into that, I don't want to forget, one, it looks like everyone's cruising through Edpuzzle. Thank you, and has gotten logged in. I haven't really gotten too many questions about how to log in. So looks like when I logged in yesterday, everyone was creating their account and such. I did accidentally post the video 2 times that's due this week. That's on the Common School and Horace Mann. It doesn't matter which one you do. I'll get the grades either way. I'll show you the one that's up for this week that's posted up for week 3. It's on public schools. That is a graded assignment, but don't worry, I'm not tough or anything. I just want you to be able to go through and see what's going on with the history of education with that. That's how I handle a lot of the history of education, is through the Edpuzzles, because there's a lot of good stuff out on the interweb, so to speak. Also with the Flipgrid's been great. I've been viewing the ones for week 2. I'm through most of them. I'm probably going to try to get a few grades posted this weekend. I will have the grades. It'll be actually probably your first grade posted. It should be done Monday or Tuesday morning at the latest. So if you don't see something with a grade on Tuesday morning, let me know. If I'm really falling behind, I'll make sure that I email you, but I don't think it'll be a problem. Like I say, if they're like the intro videos, those were fantastic. Couple other things, just trying to remember. Placements. I sent out an email related to placements. Don't forget, you do have your 10 hours. A lot of the places are just starting to get going with after Labor Day, the Boys and Girls Club. I'm going to resend or post this week the Boys and Girls Club application if you want to do that. I don't remember. I thought I did attach it to the email, but then when I was driving down, I started to wonder if I did put it on there or not. Also, with secondary education, if you're interested in doing that, I did put Ann Lansky's email on there. She got back to me. She was out of away for a week or 2. She said she was going to get back with me with a little more details, but I think if you go ahead and email her, she really, last year especially, and I know this year, they want tutors in Berkeley County. Same thing, she deals with elementary also, but Tuscarora and Pekin told me directly that they would love tutors. So Mr. Long actually said, if you email him, he'll see if he can make something work, because I think they really are looking for people. That's mostly Berkeley County. They've gotten back with me. Few of you that are doing the other hours have been emailing. A lot of you have been emailing me what you're planning on doing. As long as I give you the okay, you're good. Just remember, if you're thinking about doing something that's not on the list, it needs to be an educational style activity. It can't be traditional. As crazy as it sounds, it cannot be traditional teaching. It needs to be like a club. Coaching, I'm even letting coaching go, tutoring, things like that. That's all dealing with, K through 12 age group. It needs to be something like that. It's building those communication skills. I know for Ed 581, because this is the same video, I know a lot of you are already teachers. I know it stinks, but if you do something outside of the classroom with students, that's fine. If it's a club, if it's tutoring, if it's helping out, that works. It can't be that exact classroom time, because this is technically a pre-juncture class and it's a building blocks class. That is a state requirement. That is not a Shepherd University requirement. I think that's it. If you have any questions, please, fire me an email. Stop by my office. I'm pointing at my door, but stop by my office. The one thing also on hours I forgot to mention, I don't have it on Brightspace yet, but it will when I officially open this section. I'm going to put a HyperDocs type document, Word document, where I'm going to ask everyone to fill in what they're doing. It's just like name, what are you doing for hours? Is it, if it's another, is it approved? Other than that, that's going to be it. Just so I have a running log of what's going on. That's the overall arching thing with this week. And let me share my screen up there in the corner. I'm going to pull up our Brightspace page. This is the 200 section if you're 581, but I'll double check. I'll talk a little bit about what's due this week at the end, but the goals for this week. Oh, by the way, the curriculum postings have been really good. Someone asked the question about like when they're posting it, you know, they felt like they kind of saw things on both sides. They really thought that, you know, they were a shades of gray person instead of a black or white type thing where I'm on one side or the other. Listen, I just wanted to, the main goal of the video discussions is to basically make sure that you're reading the articles and citing things. If you really feel like you're somewhere in the middle, I won't penalize you if you think, well, I like things about this article, but I do have critiques with it with this side. I like what's in this one, but again, I have critiques. So I would maybe pull in aspects of it. That's fine. As long as I can tell that you read the article, that's the important thing. I want you to kind of know about the issues and the backgrounds and such. Just wanted you to know a little bit about curriculum and the debates that are going on with it. Obviously, it's still a big thing, you know, whether we're talking about No Child Left Behind, which we'll actually talk about a little bit later in this class, as we know it's kind of dated, but, you know, curriculum changes. Core curriculum, again, still sometimes rears its head. And if you're in a content area, there's specific curriculum that you have to focus upon. You know, if you're in elementary school, well, any grade really, you're going to see there's a lot of pressure, obviously, on math curriculum and such. That's nothing against math. Math's awesome, but you know, it's just, you know, so it's spaced out a little bit differently and all. So anyway, so curriculum stuff's been very good. This week, we're actually going to talk about the democratic approach to education, which is there's a lot of different aspects to that, but we'll talk about that here in a minute. One thing, and I'll show you the examples, but don't forget this week, which I'm talking week 3. So that would be September 12th, your educational philosophy statement is due. There are examples up on Brightspace, but it's just basically why you want to be a teacher. How do you think what style of teaching will you use in the classroom? Where do you want to go as a teacher? Meaning, like, you know, are you thinking you'll be in administration? Do you think you just want to keep developing every year? I mean, these are just things you can put. It's your philosophy statement. It's not mine. So as long as it's a well thought out statement and kind of gives me an idea of why you want to be a teacher, you'll be good to go. Of course, make sure that it's grammatically correct. I have not mentioned this yet, and I'll put the link up. I probably should do that on week 3. You want to get familiar with APA formatting. That is the educational citation bibliography type things that we do use in education. So if you're familiar with MLA, nothing wrong with MLA, but in education, you want to use APA. It's not too complicated, and it's not something I'm going to be looking hard and fast for right now in the philosophy statements. But if you want to get a little bit of a jump start from some more of your research type things, definitely want to use APA. 581, your research papers do need to be in APA. But I'll come back to the philosophy statement. The other 2 things that will be due this week, you have a video discussion on Flipgrid. The posting will be up. And then you also have another ed puzzle. It's actually the story of public schools. That one's a little different in that it actually has someone who's actually teaching and talking a little bit about the history of public schools. It's pretty well done, I thought. There's only 2 questions on it, but I just wanted you to see it. One of the questions is at the very end, but it's about, I know it's less than 10 minutes long, but it just gives you a nice overview of where public school was and where it's going. So that's kind of the overview for the week. Again, I'll come back to the philosophy statements here in a minute. I did want to go down here. As you can see this week, there's our overview, which I just mentioned. The ed puzzle is up. Discussion link is up. That's for the Flipgrid. I have not posted the link itself up as we speak, but it'll be there on Monday morning. Ed philosophy statement is here. And then if you go down here, I'm going to pull this up. I just right now been just operating off of note sheets. I just think they're just a little easier, and then you can just print or take what you want off of it. But I just wanted to give you an idea. Your readings this week talk about a democratic classroom. There's a lot of different thought process on the democratic classrooms. There are schools who specifically focus on students being involved in every single decision that a school makes. There are teachers who are adamantly against the democratic classroom because they feel like the students are running too many things. And there's a lot of schools that are, and a lot of teachers that are putting it, they have a nice mix. Of course, that's what your articles this week are going to get into on taking sides. They're kind of getting into, is it actually possible to have a truly democratic classroom? Just straight up one. And if you, I might try to put one up if you're really interested, but there are schools who do try to do this. I don't know if it would be my cup of tea, like a true, like everything, but you know, to each their own, right? Long story short, I'm going to kind of highlight these a little bit. But what is a democratic classroom? It's not a partisan space, meaning that everyone in that classroom has a say in what's going on, whether it's your classroom rules. You probably might remember this from your school days, K through 12. If you had a teacher who asked your opinion on what the classroom rules should be, that's an aspect of a democratic classroom. You're having a vested interest in it. It's not politically driven. I mean, it's not, don't think about it in terms of Republican and Democrat and those type of viewpoints. It's basically, I'm an old history major. That was actually my undergrad. I did an MAT program back in the 90s, early 2000s. Think ancient Greece, think Athenian, where everyone has a voice. That's more of what a democratic classroom is about. It's a direct democracy. It's not a representative democracy. So it's not like Republican, Democrat, things like that. It's just like everyone has a voice in the process and decision making in a classroom. This is a nice way to put it. It's kind of a definition, but a democratic classroom engages students in living democratically by promoting values such as inclusion, voice, representation, and participation. The end goal of this is students learning that everyone's voice matters, and we should be able to, one, feel like we could share our opinions, but also listen and accept others' opinions, even if we don't agree with it, which honestly is not, we probably could use more of that today, actually, just across the board, on all sides, right, left, middle, Twitter, everything. But that's a democratic classroom. It's not a complicated concept. The execution sometimes can be a little messy in the classroom. Like if I was going to give you advice, I would pull aspects of what we're going to go over into your classroom. That's what I did. And it's something that you build on as you get more and more into your educational career. I don't know if when you first go in and start teaching that you would be able to establish a truly pure democratic classroom. Maybe you could, but I think by and large, it's something that I think you build towards more, and you start to see what works and what doesn't as far as that pathway, instead of just coming in and saying, I'm doing just like Pericles back in ancient Greece. Everyone's got to say, let's roll. Not quite like that. At least that's my opinion. Here's some characteristics of a democratic classroom. It's a very trusting environment. I talked about this, but this is basically where, you share opinions. You're not going to be destroyed if everyone disagrees with your opinion. It's a shared power between teachers and students. Obviously, and your articles get into this, there are issues with this. There's a fine line. At some point, you've got to be able to step in as an educator, and you're going to see this when you get in the field more and more. You're going to have discipline problems, classroom management issues. You're going to have to set deadlines. Is that democratic? Are you going to ask students if a principal tells you have to have something done by such and such a date? Are you going to go and ask students when they want to do it, or are you going to establish the date? That's not democratic if you're doing it. But sometimes it's reality. So, and by the way, I'm not saying one's right, one's wrong. It's just you're kind of taking, I guess that's that totalitarian type aspect when you're establishing it. And listen, that's what I did because I felt like I could keep order when I could establish things and get things set up the way I wanted them to be, as far as dates and due dates and how we were going to structure the class and what content we were going to talk about. And again, this is something else. Hopefully I'm not diving off into too many areas. But when we were talking about curriculum and then of course standards, a lot of democratic classrooms will allow students to kind of have a say in what they're going to learn and what they're going to study and teach. Well, what you're going to teach. States don't always allow that. You will get a list of standards, whether I was mentioning math earlier. If you're a math teacher, you know what you have to teach. If you're a social studies teacher, you know what you're going to have to teach. Art, English, you know what you're going to have to teach. If you're in elementary, you're getting standards for all of these content areas. That's probably not democratic either. Now, where the democracy comes in is where maybe if it's a broad standard, the way that you're going to teach it, or even what content within that. For example, again, social studies, I default to that. If I have a standard related to students understanding the Renaissance, maybe I'll ask students, are you more interested in learning about the art of the Renaissance, the science, all of it? What individuals are you interested in? Are you interested in the women of the Renaissance? Maybe who is Mona Lisa, or are you more into Michelangelo? You can incorporate things like that. Again, is it reality? That's gonna kind of be. I think you can do that, but again, it's not a pure democratic type thing. This kind of relates to the other one, but students have a high degree of voice within the classroom as far as what you're going to do in a democratic classroom. And you have to respect students' ideas and contributions. You can't just put them to the side, or as soon as they suggest something, tell them that it's not feasible or doable. Maybe they suggest something and you bring it to the students. The administration. I think student government, sometimes that might be a good way to think about it. Is like sometimes when I ran a student government, students would propose something and I would kind of be the intermediate type person when I would take it down to the administration. And they would kind of be the good guys or the bad guys, so to speak. There's again that sharing of ideas, and you talk about challenging issues in the classroom. Maybe there's something that's going on, or a discipline problem or an argument. You talk about it as a group and see what's going on. A lot of people feel like once you get a strong democratic classroom where everyone's open to their to sharing their ideas and their feelings and their voices, it helps with a lot of classroom management aspects, which it does. I think if you've ever seen a pure one, again, it takes a lot to get there. And I will say this, I talk about a pure democratic classroom. Most of the ones that I've seen, and I'm not saying it that are not public schools, most of the ones I've seen are usually at some sort of private school or charter school or something along those lines, at least on YouTube. Again, you talk. That's the key to democracy, whether you're in government, whether you're in a classroom, whether you're in your home. You have to have strong dialogue. And you usually have to have protocols and rules. For example, here at Shepherd, when we go to a meeting, we use something called Robert's Rules of Order, and everyone has to follow those. Those rules of order are what establishes how we discuss, and it establishes rules of respect. Actually, I can post them up if you're actually interested in seeing this. I think I have it posted a little farther down on this note sheet. But, a lot of times classes create classroom charters, and they use the word charter instead of classroom rules because a charter makes it sound less dictatorial, I guess is the way to go. A little less totalitarian and a little more positive, like Magna Carta. If you remember that from your history classes, is called the Great Charter, and it's seen as a foundation of democracy. So some of it is in the wording and the appearance, but, you have students that are in that. An example would be, here you go, I'm going to just read it. Classroom setup. Start of the year by co-constructing features of the classroom with students and integrating their ideas into the design of a learning space. So maybe you'll have students that'll design where they want to move things and the seating arrangements and things like that. With your students, consider the underlying beliefs and values that the classroom should promote. Using a wide chart, ask them, what should our classroom community look like, sound like, feel like? So they have a say in how you're going to design your room. Now, again, I don't know about you. I like to set my room up. I liked it to set up a certain way for me and how I could teach. Um, is that democratic? No, it wasn't. And I'm not going to sit here and kid you that it was, because I just know I kind of knew how it functioned best for me. But there are teachers who do this, especially I think a lot of elementary school teachers sometimes like to use this approach. The only thing is there are things like reality that get in the way as far as time, where you have time to do this with your students. Some people like to do this stuff at the beginning of the year before the students even get in. So I say the beginning of the year, a month before the students even come in. I was one of those teachers that like to do that. But again, this is something you can do. And by the way, I don't want to poo-poo this and say that you shouldn't do this. It's just, again, think about it. Is it realistic or not? And again, your articles get into it. And maybe you can make it work, which is awesome. I mentioned the charter, but rather than creating rules or expectations, you can do a charter. A charter is different because it focuses on rights as well as responsibilities. There you go. And of course, structure for discussion and dialogue. You do want to set up in a democratic classroom, you do want to make sure that you have your students understand how you're going to communicate. There needs to be a structure. I mentioned how we do it here at Shepherd. That might be a little too complex for students, the rules of order, but you can establish them. Some people use a talking stick. I've seen that before. When I did debates in the 8th grade, when I taught, students loved it. But after my first 2 years, I wasn't loving it because I felt like it was a little chaotic and wasn't democratic. But then I started to develop ways that we would communicate in terms of when people could talk that were not in the debate, how or the order that we would talk. I actually started to use I had a stuffed Beanie Baby that someone had to hold before they could even say anything. We wouldn't even acknowledge anyone that didn't have it. And it all had to have a nice tone. These were all things I had to establish. And I think it does fall into that democratic type aspect. You need to set procedures and protocols for how you're going to discuss things in class, whether it's raising your hand, whether there's, some sort of volume or tone. Those are all important things. So, and again, these are kind of 21st century skills, a lot of these, and we'll talk about these in Education 380, but you need to focus on critical thinking, authentic preparation, social and emotional learning. These are all important things, and those are part of a democratic classroom, especially in these early grades. You want to humanize your space. You want your students to think critically, hear different ideas that are different than their own, different than their families, different than their teachers. You want them to, I like this word actually. I have to say, I got this from the article on Edutopia, but an authentic participation. And what I mean by that is you want your students to willingly participate in the democratic process, not just because you're calling on them or because they feel like they have to kind of get you off their back, so to speak. And again, these things build that emotional learning, that social learning, and communication. Big things. These are life skills. So those are some aspects of a democratic classroom. This is posted. I put a couple articles. A lot of this is actually taken right from the Edutopia articles. I wanted to make sure to give them a shout out. When I was reading for this, I really liked how they broke it down. So, but this is democratic classroom. You're going to be reading on it. You're going to be discussing it. Again, I'm fine with whatever your viewpoint is. If you think you can go out and do a democratic classroom right from the start, go for it and say democracy rules. This is what I'm going to do. If you're like, I don't think this is a good way to teach, it's going to cause chaos. That's your opinion also. I would say this, and I mentioned shades of gray, and that's what made me think about this a little bit. I think a good teacher will probably have aspects of a democratic classroom in their classroom. A good teacher will have aspects of a democratic classroom in their classroom, but I don't know if it would be fully democratic. It would have aspects of a dictatorship or something like that, I think, just in case you have to go that route. Is that good or bad? I don't know. I guess it's traditional, and that sometimes can be also a good or bad thing, but I think sometimes it's a mixed thing. I think if you pull in some of these aspects in your classroom, that's a win. And if you keep some of the traditional, more teacher-centered, I didn't even use this word in this lecture, and I better make sure I do it. If you have some teacher-centered aspects, that's okay. But again, you want to keep those student-centered aspects also, which I guess a democratic classroom lends itself to. Now, with that being said, that's this. This is posted. And that should really kind of hammer out the week. Again, Ed Puzzle, Flipgrid Discussion 2, Education and Philosophy, all good things. If you need an educational example, when you click on there, there should be, there it is, Statement of Educational Philosophy. This should be the breakdown, I believe. Yep, that's a further breakdown if you need it. And close that out. There is an example. This was one from my social studies class, but I think it'll give you an idea of what's expected. It doesn't have to be overly long, double spaced. If you got a page and a half, 2 pages, I think would be great. Just kind of want to know what you're trying to do and what maybe shaped you to want to go this route. Maybe it's content, maybe it's a prior teacher, maybe your parents are teachers. That's all good. That's, like I said, I'm not here to judge as far as why you want to be in education. I just want to see why you think this is the field for you. You're early in your journey. It's probably your second education class here at Shepherd. So there you go. And you'll probably write a few of these as you go along. I know if you're a social studies person in 422, we do a specific social studies one. That, I think, everyone, is the week. Don't forget a couple of small things. 10 hours, make sure you get that out, and I'll have that document posted for this week if you could fill that out. I'll have the grades. Your initial grades should be up by Tuesday morning. And was thinking, oh, I'll say this every week, and just as a reminder, don't forget to kind of start looking at some of that praxis material. It is up under week 2 right now. I'll probably make a little praxis thing over here this week. Things are starting to slow down with the start of the semester. That first week's a little crazy. But if you look here, Praxis 1, that should be a link to West Virginia. That one right there, core, those are the ones you have to take. And please make sure you do these. It has to be specific to West Virginia. Those are the 3. Again, you don't have to take them all at the same time, but you can. I think each test is $90 is what I've heard. And I know that stinks. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you or anything like that. But it's a reality of the state. West Virginia Department of Education requires praxis testing unless you're exempt because of ACT, SAT scores. And if you think you do, and I don't think I mentioned that last week, if you think you have a high enough ACT score, we can definitely check and see if you're exempt from that. Also, I'm going to throw her name out because she's such a whiz. You'll start to hear the name Miss Swisher a lot on your educational journey. She is the master of all things praxis here at Shepherd. She's in Canute, and if you have any questions, if I can't answer it, I know she can. And a lot of times when people ask me praxis questions, she's who I turn to, or I'll just go ahead and double check with her before I give you an absolute answer. That, my friends, should be everything. I hope everyone's semester is starting off smooth. Hope everyone was safe during the storm. I'm recording this a day or 2 after that. So with that, have a good holiday weekend. I'm recording this actually on Friday. What is today? I don't even have my calendar up. It's the 3rd. So have a good holiday weekend. Hopefully you get to enjoy it a little bit. Don't work too hard. At least get a day in or a few hours in doing some fun stuff. And I will see you next week. And again, if you have any problems, email or stop by my office, 101C in Canute. Talk to y'all later. Bye.